Hi, I'm Diane Flynn, the director of the Beinecke Scholarship Program. With me is 2019 Beinecke Scholar Sebastian Puerta. Sebastian, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Of course. So obviously my name is Sebastian. I was actually born in Medellin, Colombia, and I was raised in the Atlanta suburbs. Being raised in the Atlanta suburbs, I thought what better place to go to undergraduate than my very own state flagship, the University of Georgia. So in undergrad, I actually studied in a concurrent bachelor's and master's program in economics. And so I was able to fortunately graduate with both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in 4 years. And in that program, I was really interested in questions, social science questions that were really relevant to my personal and lived experiences. So I studied things like education, discrimination, the labor market, et cetera, et cetera. And those are the types of questions, and those are the areas that I wanted to research in graduate school. However, I'm taking a little bit of a 2-year gap before then when I'm working at a lab at Harvard University called Opportunity Insights, where we study these types of questions that I've been interested in, things about the equality of the opportunity. So studying education, studying the criminal justice system, studying how neighborhoods generate opportunities for people to make sure that those engines of mobility that have driven so long in America, how can we make them work better for everyone? So that's what I've been doing lately.
Thanks, Sebastian. Now, just for the students who are out there who are also doing combined bachelor and master's degrees, you graduated in 4 years, which meant that you applied for the Beinecke Scholarship in your third year study, because we base our eligibility on when you graduate with your bachelor's degree. So you can undertake BA, MA degrees and still apply for the Beinecke Scholarship. Unfortunately, you cannot use Beinecke Scholarship funding to pay for the master's portion of your undergraduate, like those dual degrees. You would have to use those for later graduate studies. But if you're doing a BA, MA program that's longer than 4 years, you would need to apply based on the date of your graduation from your bachelor's degree. So talk to your fellowship advisors about this if you have questions, but it's definitely a route that you can pursue and still be a Beinecke Scholar, as Sebastian has done. So now, Sebastian, you've been doing some amazing work now, but you also did some great things as an undergraduate. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work you did as an undergraduate that made you a really strong candidate for the Beinecke Scholarship?
Absolutely. I think if one wants to do research, the best way to learn how to do research is to do research. And that's exactly what I did. I had plenty of amazing mentors and advisors who brought me along to work on their very own research projects. So those were amazing educational experiences. But in fact, I think the experiences where I learned the most were the projects where I took it upon myself to ask a question that I was very interested in and teach myself the methods to answer that question, go through the whole process by myself, with the help of an advisor, of course. I had 2 projects all throughout undergrad where I did that, and I think those were the experiences where I felt like I truly grew and I truly learned. And not only does that help me get technical skills, helps me put a line on my CV, but I think it was really useful to help define my research interests so that when I wrote my Beinecke Scholarship application, when I applied at graduate school, I know exactly the type of questions that I want to ask. For example, one of the projects that I worked on was to study racial disparities in gifted education in Georgia. So looking at 2 students, one white, one black, and seeing what is the differential likelihood that one gets into gifted programs and one doesn't. So those are the types of questions that I'm interested in, and I was able to talk about that sort of thing in my Beinecke Scholarship application, and I plan to talk about it in my graduate school application. I think there's nothing better than getting some hands-on experience, getting your hands a little dirty and being a little bit of a go-getter, and I think that helped me out a lot.
Thanks. And I love that, as you said, you were doing this on your own. It wasn't that you had to have a structured research program at your university, even though you did have those opportunities. Some of the things you were doing just because you were curious about them, and you were doing them, by seeking out an advisor to work with you and saying, these are the kinds of things I want to understand. So it's a great example, Sebastian. Thank you. Now, moving on from that, do you have any tips or hints, any advice for students about the Beinecke application and how to finish it, or the process of applying, please?
Absolutely. I think a lot of these scholarship applications, what I found to be the most useful thing that I get out of them, other than like if you potentially win the scholarship, but outside of that, what I get out of them is I get an opportunity to be really introspective and to think about myself, in particular, to think about my story. And I think that introspection, looking deep in yourself until you find what that story is really important. Because I think that story is the most important and powerful tool that you have for one of these scholarship applications, right? I think there's power in the personal. And so I think the most important thing that you can do, that I did, was to look into yourself, look in the mirror, and see what that story is. What is that narrative thread that has been strewn upon your entire life, right? Follow that thread, follow that path, and see where has this crazy experience taken you, and try to tie it all together. It may be a little difficult, might be easier for some than others, of course, but if you can do that, if you can make that application into a story, I think that puts you just so far ahead of other applicants, because everyone loves a good story. We are all storytellers. We will all sit around the fireplace and listen to stories. So if you can do that, I think that will help you out, right? So you might be interested in philosophy or social science. You might think, how do I fit that into a story? But trust me, you got interested in those topics for a reason. I got interested in economics and social science because I lived through some of the experiences that I want to study: educational inequity, discrimination, et cetera, et cetera. That's why I'm interested in these things. If you're interested in those things, there's probably a reason behind it. Find that reason, look into yourself, and tell that story. And I think that will help you out a lot.
Thank you, Sebastian. And I would echo that as somebody who has the privilege of reading these amazing applications that people put together. It's lovely to see something that is, personal, and that we really get a feel for who the candidate is and what makes them tick, rather than them telling us what they think we want to hear. So thank you for that advice. Sebastian, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time, you sharing your expertise, your advice. It's really, the students out there will benefit from it. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.